Hello, this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barnes. Today we're going to be talking about some of this continued stuff on college campuses. Also, Joe Biden canceling the debt for some art students. And some people are annoyed with that. I was surprised by people who tweeted that out and said, Trump's probably going to win after seeing that report today. And I don't think people are so gung-ho about canceling student debt at the same time where they're watching, students like use pop-up tents to camp out on lawns and stuff. But we'll be talking about that. And also Biden is talking about bringing in Palestinian refugees. So some people are not cool with that. So lots of things to discuss today. But before we jump into it, I'm going to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my website, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I do appreciate it. If you guys would like to support on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. I do read super chats. I mean, unless they're like, I don't know, obscene or something, but I will read them. Also, you guys can check out different merch that's available on the website, like this I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt. We got black tea mugs and other stuff as well. And I encourage you guys to check out some of my books. I have 17 that are published altogether. I'm soon to have my 18th one available as well. I'll let you guys know when that drops. But you guys can check out in the description, if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, there's links to all my different social media pages, and there's a page that'll take you to my like Amazon site where you can see my books and other stuff. But easy way to find my stuff is to search my name. So anyway, let's hop to it. So the first thing I want to point out, you guys know that I usually, if I do find something funny to share, I like to start with something humorous. So George Alexopoulos, who does political comics, not just political comics, but a lot of his political comics are go get pretty viral, and I've shared them before. But he made this image here of these protesters. And this image here of this young woman is a PhD student who seems like she's going to be a professional, useless person due to her what she's studying. And she went viral for like a little press conference that she did. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, because they want snacks sent to them, and they're not getting enough snacks, and so she wants the aid, and is mirroring sort of complaints that are going on in Gaza about blocking aid. And it's like, bro, you can go to the dining hall and get food if you'd like. You could go order pizza somewhere, go to McDonald's, whatever. You are not in a position where you need humanitarian aid. But if you haven't seen this, here are the children who want their snacks.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
but they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries. We want to take over this building. Now, would you please bring us food and water? And
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
But
violently.
they haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
And the Grubhub.
Okay, so anyway, that's her. She's going around. So these people are really interesting. A lot of big babies that are largely uninformed, misinformed. But hey, it feels nice. It makes them feel like they're doing something. A lot of this is there's professional protesters or who would just go on to cause and cause and cause. There's a report that what's going around from Morning Joe of a police officer talking about when they raided into the building because they had taken over Columbia, and they finally had, the police come in, and they showed the bike locks and the big chains. And I guess I'll just show the clip, but some people are trying to say that these are just things that people normally have.
Tell us about this change.
Yeah, so when we entered Hamilton Hall, this is not what students bring to school. Okay, this is what professionals bring to campuses and universities. These are heavy industrial chains that were locked with bike locks, and this is what we encountered on every door inside of Hamilton Hall. And so in order for our emergency services group to enter into the building, they had to first cut through these chains, but also get rid of debris and barricaded doors that were barricaded with refrigerators, vending machines, chairs, you name it. They pushed it up against those doors to try and stop us from coming in. But our guys would not be stopped. They did a fantastic job of entering into that location and taking people into custody without incident last night. They took about 40 to 50 people into custody inside of the lobby of Hamilton Hall last night.
So some people are saying like those are just typical bike locks that they sell and you can get those from Walmart, Mike. So are you trying to make the argument that there's not like paid professional protesters and these are just the students who are carrying around these chains and plan to do all this stuff? Because I mean, one way or another, arrest and expel. You know, I don't get the motivation, I suppose. I appreciate the correction if that's the case. But I don't understand the motivation because it just makes everybody looks bad. Everybody looks bad who's taking over the schools and blocking the doors and blocking with refrigerators and barricading all that stuff. It just looks bad, guys. But if that's that's what you want to do, it doesn't really help. And to those students who feel like they are just trying to do good and that their heart is in the right place, when stuff like this starts escalating to the point that it has, where there's like brawls, and there's brawls between the protesters and the counter protesters, like there's Jewish students fighting protesters, videos of that stuff going around, which there are Jewish students who were assaulted before, kids who were being blocked from going to class on different universities and so on. When it gets to this point where there's these escalations of taking over the schools and the people vandalizing property, smashing in windows, spray painting stuff, it's a good idea to just separate yourself and find a more productive way to promote your cause. Just try to find a different way. I'm not trying to demonize everybody involved in this stuff. But like just turn on your brain, turn on your common sense and look around who you're surrounded with and say, you know what, I'm going to back off from this. Like, I, if I went to a rally on the right and I heard that there was going to be some shady characters there and it was kind of going to evolve into something else, I'd be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to support the cause some kind of other way. I don't want to risk being associated with some unscrupulous sort of characters. I know not everybody thinks about that. Some people are like, I'm going to stand my ground no matter what. You can't let your good be spoken evil of. It's a biblical principle. I think it's a common sense principle. But why would you continue on with this? If you're like an innocent sort of person and your heart's in the right place and you just want the war to end and whatnot, but you look around and people are ripping down American flags, attacking students, won't let them go in, and etc. Just look around and ask yourself, are we the baddies? And do you want to be the baddie? And make a choice to say, you know what, I'm just going to go home, or I'm just going to try to go to class. I'm going to just try to live my life and not be a part of this. And I will try to be more productive, because all this serves a purpose, I suppose, but in a radical destabilizing the West kind of way. People who may want to actually do some good and don't have any sort of ulterior motive or some kind of deep sinister plan. They just think they're doing the right thing. Not just these campus protests, but the people who block the streets, traffic, all that stuff. You just make people upset and unsympathetic toward your cause. You just frustrate people, and you'll get people like the Biden administration, who's kind of lax, and other like really left-wing people who might let you do some stuff and get away with being a knucklehead, but at the end of the day, you just make more people want to inch over and vote for the right. And I know these folks are mad at Biden, but you know, Trump is a pro-Israel president. So to what end is all this for? Just stopping at, if you don't have like some kind of ulterior, bigger message, and you just want to raise some awareness because you want what you think is genocide, all that stuff to stop, ask yourself, am I going about this in the right way? Just ask yourself, are you representing your cause correctly, the plight of these people correctly, your community correctly, your family correctly? Because you're not. You're not. So just take a step back and reevaluate your life. Just do that. But we know, though, that for a lot of people, this isn't really about Israel and Gaza. It's all about that oppressed versus oppressor system. And it's just like the BLM stuff, it feeds into this other stuff. And it's an anti-West, anti-American kind of mentality. And I mean, there's no reason to deface statues of Washington. But here we are. These sorts of things don't make people want to be on your side. Again, tearing down American flags and plastering this stuff over, you know, the first American president. It's just not a good look, guys.
This is the statue of George Washington on George Washington University's campus. And this statue happens to be in the middle of the pro-Palestinian encampment on the university.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff doesn't make people sympathetic to your cause. And it just makes people translate all this stuff into, you just don't like the West, you just don't like America, and you're trying to tear down our institutions. And it's bigger than what you claim. And I keep saying this, what I find fascinating about the Israel Gaza stuff and some of the commentary surrounding it is how many people have just a skewed sense of perception. And I found it so strange, people like telling me like, you should be pro Palestine because you're brown. And I'm like, what? I'm not that kind of brown. What are you talking about? Like, why can't I as an individual just look at the issues and make a decision or not make a decision or whatever? Why would you look at my skin color and just say, oh, all the brown people on one side and the white people on the other? And it doesn't make sense how you see some of these groups line up, like the Queers for Palestine and so on. It's very strange because of what would probably happen in Gaza and other parts of the world. So, but there's this revolutionary kind of ideology with these folks, and they're out here trying to, I don't know, usher in some kind of new age. And I'm not surprised that some of this stuff mirrors like the BLM stuff. And there's some coordinated efforts. I think some from the Daily Wire just came out with a report about how some of these protesters were told to create kind of like a summer 2020 vibe with the protest. And it's not surprising. And I wonder how they're gonna stop it. Are they gonna just capitulate to all these people? Because I'm sure Biden doesn't want all this stuff to happen like during the DNC convention, but I don't think they'll bring the hammer down. And it's funny because I saw some people who were like, "Oh, I'm so left wing," but even I'm thinking about not voting for Biden because they're arresting these people on the campuses, and I'm like, what's supposed to happen? What's supposed to happen? But that's Twitterville. There's radical folks. If Biden would just like show some leadership, some competency on some of these issues, he'd have a better chance. But every day there's something that goes on in Biden's administration or his life that makes people go, gosh, we really can't take him for another 4 years. Like we watched the other day, I think maybe it was Monday. I guess it had to have been Monday. An interview with Bill Barr, and he's on CNN. And people cannot wrap their minds around Bill Barr saying that he would still vote for the Republican ticket and he would vote for Trump in a binary choice between him and Biden. And they're like, but they said mean things. He said mean things about you. He's like, it's not about me. It's about the country. Well, he's a threat to democracy because January 6th, he's like, he didn't succeed. The left is more dangerous. And then Bill Barr would try to list things, and then CNN would come back with this weak kind of clapback or whatever. And Caitlin Collins was just like, are you saying it's about the policies you're going to vote for because of the policies? And my sister was like, your face was so funny when she said that. I was like, yeah, people vote for policies. Obviously, people vote supporting in different policies, hoping that the agenda will get done. But he's like, we can't take another 4 years of this. That Biden, it just shows weakness on the world stage. And the left is so authoritative. And he said there's far more to fear from the progressive left. When you talk about liberties and freedoms being trampled on, yeah, you see that from the left. So I don't understand what's hard about understanding his position. Just act better. Like seriously, just act better. There's people who were like begging for just some normalcy. And Biden never brought that. I knew he never would. But you expect people to be this bad? No, I guess not. So he, at least I can still be surprised. Um, Biden is talking about bringing in Palestinians in as refugees. And some people are, of course, not okay with that. And this was a question that was talked about during the primary. And Nikki Haley said something along the lines of that maybe like there's a way to vet these people. And instantly people were like, nah, bro, I can't support that. And so she kind of walked it back and kind of denied ish some stuff that she had said, because Ron, of course, pointed out stuff that she had said, and she tried to pretend like she'd really say that stuff. But that was like an instant, like, no, can't vote for you sort of situation. And I think it's a terrible situation to be in. But there's a reason why all the neighbors don't want them to come in. And we don't have to be the suckers. I'm just going to be blunt. We don't have to be the suckers. We can help people try to rebuild in a way, hopefully, that Hamas doesn't, well, hopefully Hamas won't be a thing. And we'll try to help these people get some kind of semblance of life back. And it's very interesting with all these people calling for Israel to stop or a ceasefire, but you don't really see a lot of people saying, like, bring the hostages home. I don't know how many of these hostages are actually alive. There was an American hostage. They put out like a video a couple weeks ago. He had lost his hand, but he's still alive. And so I don't understand why a lot of these America First people don't care more about this American citizens who were killed and captured and stuff. But they don't really say, bring demand the hostages be released. But why not just make the demand that Hamas surrenders? Of course it's a silly demand because they're not going to listen to protesters. But why then? People aren't listening to your demands anyway. So why not just hold up the signs and say, Hamas, surrender? Isn't that the easiest pathway to less people being killed? Is surrender. The leaders of Hamas surrendering, soldiers laying down their weapons. Wouldn't that be the easiest path to peace at this point? Is them surrendering? Because the leaders of Hamas have said, we get the chance, we're going to commit another October 7th. So the ceasefire won't do anything in the long term. But Hamas surrendering, if Israel won, that would be peace for a bit. But they don't they want revolution. They want revolution. They want river to the sea. That's what they're chanting on the college campuses. So that's a big no-no with the Biden administration. I don't know if he wants to do it, how he can really be stopped, though. So by the time the election comes along, if he really wants to do that, it might already be over. Might already be too late. But there's a lot of, I don't know what will move him in any sort of direction. Because you would think he's obviously capitulating to the radicals with the Israel stuff and what is walking on eggshells to try to win, like Michigan, and he's concerned about Dearborn and other kind of places or whatever. But I don't understand. Excuse me. I don't understand why he would capitulate and be soft on that kind of issue while just being really stupid about the border. Just really stupid. Would it have been like too much to just basically redo the remain in Mexico? Maybe call it something different. Pretend like it's not the Trump policy. Pretend like it's your own policy, but just do it. Didn't they do that with basically insulin anyway? Like, we're gonna lower the prices and yay, like I'm pretty sure Trump did that, but okay. Just pretend like it's your idea, but just do a good thing. He's not even willing to do any sort of common sense there. So I don't know if this man can be swayed. And I don't know how much when he wants to do something, he does it. Like he did that ridiculous press conference after, it was announced that he wasn't going to be charged for his handling of classified documents because the jury would think he's a confused old man, basically. And he decided to do a victory strut and / rebuke, and he ended up not looking good at all. But that was his idea to do the press conference. So there's blips of him, taking charge, but maybe he doesn't really. I don't know how much he is in control of his own administration. So maybe the, I don't know, car on fire driving off of a cliff is just all the radicals he just decided to surround himself with. Because the stuff he does doesn't make any sense. And on top of all this stuff, they're talking about letting the Trump tax cuts expire. And he's talking about raising taxes other sorts of ways too. So if they let the Trump tax cuts expire, and Kamala Harris tweeted out the other day, if you make under $400,000, you will not see a tax increase. That's not true, especially if with expiring the tax cuts and stuff. So, and we knew that they were going to expire. And one thing they do, they do these things short term and have them expire. So they have to negotiate. And the Republicans like, oh, they're going to get rid of it. We got to do it again. They had to elect us. Like you could, just change the tax code and make it so that the cuts are more long lasting. But he's talking about letting that expire. Would you run on that if you were the incumbent? There's just not a lot of things that make sense. There's just not a lot of things that make sense. And I'm puzzled all the time by this fella. I am. So another thing that I found pretty puzzling, Meghan McCain, she had tweeted out that Trump is going to win. And Meghan McCain, I don't know if it's fair to say she hates Trump's guts. I don't know if she wants to be characterized that way, but she's not too fond of him. Because, I'm pretty sure she doesn't find him to be, a great human being. And of course, he talked trash about her dad. And she's a daddy's girl. So, and her mom definitely isn't too fond of Trump. And her mom said some stuff about Bill Barr the other day, for still coming out and supporting Trump. So Meghan isn't a fan, but she still said that Trump is going to win. Now, why did she say that? Because today, President Biden said, today my administration is approving a $6.1 billion in student debt cancellation for 317,000 borrowers who attended the art institutes. So she said Trump is going to win because one, he's on this quest to do the cancellation, regardless of what the courts say. He wants to find a way around it. He's obviously trying to bribe younger voters, and that's not just young voters who have student debt or whatever, but they are trying to bribe to get those voters out on his side, even though now they showed up in like the last election, but you just have a lot of people voting. So people would try to overhype the youth vote in the past couple of votes. In some states, maybe it made a difference. but a lot of people are voting, a lot nowadays. But young people, it's hit or miss, and they're really fickle. And many of the young voters on the Democrat side are very progressive. And is it worth pandering to them? I guess to Biden, he thinks it is, but I don't think in the end it'll prove to be the right sort of move here. But there's a lot of people who don't want to pay for kids' college, or they're upset because they already paid for someone's college. And maybe they can understand like doing something great in the world, like, being a doctor or something. But the art stuff. So anyway, this is from the New York Post. Biden forgives student loans for 317K art students cheated by school promising careers. The White House announced Wednesday that President Biden has ordered the federal government to write off $6.1 billion in student debt for about 317,000 people who attended the art institutes, continuing a approach to set aside such debt after the Supreme Court struck down a broader debt forgiveness plan last year. Today, my administration is approving $6.1 billion in student debt cancellation for 317,000 borrowers who attended our institutes. Biden sent a statement. The institution falsified data, knowingly misled students, and cheated borrowers into taking on mountains of debt without leading to promising career prospects at the end of their studies. The now defunct Art Institutes was based in Atlanta and had locations across the country, including in critical swing states such as Arizona and Pennsylvania. Biden last month proposed a federal regulation that would take effect in early fall and cancel up to 20,000 in accrued interest for more than 25 million debtors who went to college, on top of prior actions to wipe out 146 billion in federally owned debt. Republicans have accused the president of buying votes, that's what he's doing, and called the bailouts unfair to non-college educated voters, which is true. Those who have already paid off their loans, very true. Though much of the forgiveness has been through implementation of repayment plans under bipartisan laws, including for people in public service jobs. Biden explicitly contrasted himself with former President Donald Trump, against whom he's running in the November election. In his latest announcement, while my predecessor looked the other way when colleges defrauded students and borrowers, I promised to take this on directly to provide borrowers with relief they need and deserve, Biden said. Over the last 3 years, my administration has approved nearly $29 billion in debt relief for 1.6 million borrowers whose colleges took advantage of them, closed abruptly, or were covered by related court settlements, compared to just 53,500 borrowers who had ever gotten their debt canceled through these types of actions before I took office. And in total, we have approved debt cancellation for nearly 4.6 million Americans through various actions. So so it is unfair, but DeSantis addressed this sort of stuff with the cancellation of debt, student debt. And if the colleges are running scams on people, then go after the colleges, hold the colleges accountable, do something to fix the system. But you can't just keep dishing out loans, especially loans to kids who are taking, majors where they're definitely not going to make it, or probably not going to make it and be able to pay back those large sums. Don't just keep handing them out, and then you keep handing out the loans, and the schools are like, okay, we know they're going to have X amount of money that they can pay for, so we can up this price, up that price, up that price. The more involvement the government has, it just makes all this stuff more expensive. But they pass out these loans, they go get degrees where they can't pay the stuff back. Some of it is, well, the students' faults, I guess, for taking it. And And then, especially if they're taking a degree where they can't really pay it back, or it's likely they're not going to pay it back, the government or whoever issued the loan for giving it to them in the first place, when they probably can't pay it back. And then these colleges for taking the money when these students probably aren't going to have a future. If the schools really are running a game on them, are running a scam on these kids, then go ahead and do something with the colleges. But to not solve the problem and just expect other people to pick up the slack, especially after other people who have paid their loans or people who didn't go to college at all, it just makes people mad. I told my mom, well, somebody pointed out to my mom, I talked about yesterday in the show, I read a story about Northwestern University capitulating to the protesters and paying for the tuition of Palestinian students and stuff. And my mom was just floored. My mom, she just was floored that they were going to do that. And I said it was rewarding, bad behavior and stuff, but she's like, what about the black students and the such and such students? And my mom has a really cute country Detroit accent. But she was just going off about this stuff. But her face was what was like really funny. People cannot believe some of this stuff going on. I got a super chat here. To what degree do I think Title IX rewrite will be noticed by female voters? It is probably the most radical thing Biden has done. I think it should not just upset women, but also men as well, because they are reinstituting their draconian sort of measures that they had under the Biden administration, when, like, if a young man was accused of something inappropriate, that he could be kicked out of campus and have his life ruined before the law really gets to determine who, if he was or wasn't really guilty. And there was examples of that happening in the Biden administration. So young men should be concerned. And when Trump repealed that back, they're like, oh, they're making it easier for sexual assault and things but no, they want to have some due process restored. You can't just throw around false accusations or someone to be subject to false accusations and it ruined their lives before they can have the chance to even really clear their name. So I think it's bad for women and men, the Title IX. And thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't know. I see women talk about it a bit on TikTok and other places. I don't know how. It's crazy to me. I guess we'll have to ask ourselves, would women rather protect their sports, their private spaces, their daughters, and or would they, rather be able to kill their kids? Because they're really trying to lean into the abortion stuff so heavily, and they're hoping so hard that can be the thing that saves them, that will be the silver bullet for them. But at the same time, they do this other stuff. And I'm like, you cannot say that you care about women's rights while having this actual war on women, where they just have to capitulate to the fantasies of men. And it's funny because right now on social media, there's, for 2 weeks at least, there's been this debate. It's just particularly, I think, on TikTok. I haven't really seen it anywhere else, about would you rather be in the forest, I guess trapped in the forest with a bear or a man? And people are disturbed because a lot of women are saying the bear. Now I would say the man. I would rather be trapped with the man. But people are like, oh, men will hurt you and it'll be personal. Like the bear is just doing it to survive or whatever. Or maybe you can scare off the bear, but a man, he'll do things maliciously. If a man attacks you, people won't believe you, but they'll believe they'll believe you if a bear attacks you. And they have all these like traumatic sort of talking points associated with it. And the guys, there's guys who are sympathetic and like, oh my gosh, all these women are picking bears. Like, we have to look at ourselves inwardly. And then there's a lot of guys that are like, this answer doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, how many, look at, there's some really bad men in the world, but most men don't want to be bothered. You guys sleep with men, go on dates with men you don't know, blind dates, Tinder dates, all that. You clearly aren't that afraid of men. So, but people are mad at the men for just kind of not accepting how the women feel. Now, I personally, someone said that it should be like a test to see if men are dateable, if they're just going to accept the woman's answer. I would be leery of the dude who just accepted the woman's answer if they said bear, because I'm always leery about men who just go along with things that women want to hear. I'm like, no, give me the logic. Let's talk about the logic together. Or I've seen some women make the case like, I would pick a man because I have a better chance of fighting off a man than I do a bear. Like, if it's survival of the fittest, if it gets to that point, I at least want to try to live, to fight. So I'm gonna pick the bear. But anyway, I brought this up because I'm like, I wonder how many people are saying that they would rather pick the bear, but they would also allow trans women into women's prisons, that they would allow dudes like Leah Thomas, William Thomas, who swam at like UPenn, to be in the locker rooms, and so on. Like, how many of these people overlap in the Venn diagrams? I'm very curious. Like, well, no, they're really women. Nope, they're dudes in a dress, and they're, they got some stuff going on internally that need to be dealt with. So, and I know there's some people who those circles don't intersect and would still pick the bear, which I found to be interesting. But I would pick the man myself. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Title IX, but I hope there's enough suburban women that will consider Trump again over Biden, or just Republicans over Biden in general, and the Democrats, if that's the route that they want to go. Because if you're like far left, there's a lot of left-wing people that are willing to surrender that stuff for whatever reason. But I think there's a lot of like moderates, from the burbs, who didn't like Trump's tweets, and some personal things about him. Still probably there's a ton of stuff they don't like, but they still care about their kids. Go to the Black community, talk about this stuff. To go talk to minorities about this. I think from my experience, they're less inclined to roll over and sacrifice their kids to the nonsense. And I'm sorry if that offends somebody, but that's just been, at least if we're talking about Democrats, people on the left. No, I'm not saying there's not liberals who are minorities who are willing to be like, yeah, totally, my daughter should be in the locker room with the trans kid. I'm not saying those people don't exist, but I just think that it's more inclined to come from the white liberal, and maybe some of that is capitulating because of white guilt and white privilege and those sorts of things, because they feel like they're at the height of the total pool of privilege, so therefore they have to sacrifice the most for the virtue. So I think there's opportunity there for sure, for sure. How much of an impact, I don't know. But Biden does something crazy every day. Every day. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's so funny to me because there's so many reasons and so many setups and stuff for people to say, hey, don't vote for Trump. Even beyond the indictments, there's mistakes that Trump has made, things that he said and done personally, people he has around him. There's reasons to point and say, you really want this guy back in the White House? But Biden is so terrible. It's hysterical. It's really really sad. So I hope that answered my question. I mean, your question. Anyway, last thing I want to, not the last thing, but before I get to my closing thoughts, I want to show this clip that the Trump War Room posted on Fox that I think is kind of silly. And this is about the protests. And they make a comment that it just isn't accurate. And so I just want to call it out because I think we can be honest with ourselves and still support whoever we want to support.
I can't imagine what these students are going through. We have to bring a hammer on this incitement of violence. This reminds me of what happened as Jews were trying to enter Vienna University in 1938, and Nazis were preventing them from doing so. This is the type of incitement that we're allowing in the United States under Joe Biden's watch. This would have never happened under President Trump. Biden is complicit in this violence, and he's not saying anything, Maria, because you've seen Manmo's poll come out saying 20% of his base is for this type of violence. He is pandering to this liberal elite and at the expense of our students, at the expense of our country, at the expense of democracy.
So the thing that I felt was silly here was her saying that these sorts of things wouldn't have happened under Donald Trump. And, you know, I like a lot of the stuff that happened in the Trump years, but 2020 was a terrible year that happened to happen while he was president. So the BLM stuff happened, and Trump didn't want that stuff to happen. He kept saying, like, let us in, because they didn't want to use go on parts that weren't like federal land or whatever but if they wanted to, he would disperse the National Guard or whoever, federal agents or whatnot. But he kept saying, like, you gotta let us come. Tom Cotton said, wrote an article was it the New York Times about how Trump should have declared martial law, and New York Times was so mad. They had people like resign over it for having this different opinion. Such snowflakes, but Trump opted not to do more, and it's a terrible thing that the governors and mayors and whoever allowed that crazy stuff to go on city to city to city. But yeah, that stuff happened in the Trump administration. So that was cap, guys. it just wasn't true. So when I saw that clip, my guys, you can support your guy. You can support your guy all day long, but I can't do the lying thing. I can't pretend. And maybe that was part delusion and not straight up lying, but I can't do that. I cannot do that. So and I understand, like, it's the Trump War Room, but they didn't have to post that clip. It would have never happened under Biden. Okay. Just the BLM riots. I mean, they said it would never happen under Trump, but of course the BLM riots happened. So And again, those are things that the Biden administration, there wasn't a Biden administration yet, but Kamala Harris wanted the protesters out, helped to like promote that Minnesota Freedom Fund that was bailing out protesters. So they wanted all that stuff to happen. The Democrats were, elevating it and then, pretending like it wasn't violent. You had CNN with the fire in the background, and the reporter in the Chiron said fiery but mostly peaceful protest. So they were pushing it, and Trump of course wasn't pushing that stuff and promoting that stuff. But come on guys, that happened, this stuff could very much happened under Trump. And I'm not saying what happened under anybody, but something similar and worse did happen under Trump. So let's just be careful about the things that we tweet. I don't like tweeting out. Like I worked at the Michigan Republican Party in 2016 and stuff when Trump did win, and I was very careful about the kind of stuff that I would make and put out, because I didn't want someone to look at the content that I made and be able to poke holes through it and be like, and just fact check it and be like, oh, this was dishonest. So I just would like some stronger kind of more honest content. There's so much stuff that you can trash Biden on. You don't have to go that route. So anyway, before I let you go, I wanted to talk about a conversation I had with my sister earlier, which I was reflecting on a live I was listening to the other night on TikTok. And there's a lot of people who have abortion conversations all the time, all day long on TikTok. And this young woman joined this young man's live, and she didn't really want to argue or debate or go hard or something. At least that's what she said at first. But she said, well, what do you say about, because abortion really saved my life and it saves the lives of other people. And so I've watched this kid a couple times. I don't know his name. But he pops in my feed a lot, and he said, well, I grant the exception, for the life of the mother. So you just got that out of the way. And so very quickly, her stance kept evolving, and she ended up just throwing in like the kitchen sink with her discussions. And come to find out, because she said, when she first said abortion saved my life, he was just trying to push that out the way. I wanted him to ask, how so? Because I figured she didn't mean that literally. I figured she meant it kind of, I don't know, metaphorically or something. And come to find out that was the case. And come to find out she was advocating that other women be able to have abortions for their lifestyle choices that metaphorically save their lives. And it got to the point where she was attacking his character and throwing in every sort of argument as fast as possible before, and she would name something before he could even respond and test out the logic of the statements that she made. But what was really striking to me was that she because she said that she had the abortion with the pill, and he's like, yeah, you starved your child. And she's like, oh, come on, bro, that's not what I did. She's like, I take a pill and it stopped the hormone, and they can't even survive with a hormone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she doesn't even know what she did, because it does like block off the hormone, but it like breaks down like the lining and stuff, so it ends up cutting off the flow of like blood and nutrients and oxygen and stuff to the baby. That's how it suffocates and starves to death. And she knew that you take a second pill and she's like, it just makes it so that you have like a heavy period. Yeah, but you're to flush out and to expel the dead baby, but the first pill will kill it, because you have cut off oxygen and nutrients to the baby. So it is accurate to say that that she suffocated and starved them, but she didn't seem to know that. So she just described it as, stopping a hormone and having a period. And it was really sad to hear, but she was even minimizing it in that kind of way. She was still so defensive the whole time. And there's a lot of women I hear say that they don't have regrets with their abortion. I can't say I've ever had a conversation with a woman where I genuinely believe that. Um and she didn't say she didn't have regrets, but I definitely wouldn't have believed this woman if she made that claim. So he eventually had to end up letting her go cuz she just I don't know, wanted to get on to justify herself, I guess. Cuz it really wasn't to have a conversation cuz she wouldn't allow him to have one. Cuz he wouldn't allow them to talk point by point to kind of test out the logic. But it just really made me sad because again she had no idea what she was really doing. And I was talking to my sister, I said it is so hard, this topic, because from a pro-life or abolitionist standpoint, wherever you stand on that issue, because you can make a really compelling, video with the woman saying, hey, how they needed this and how they had to make this life choice, etc., blah blah blah, but you can't show an ad on TV or something showing the reality of what happens in these abortions to these babies. And people lie about how developed they are, and they're like, "Oh, that's not actually a heartbeat." Remember when Stacey Abrams made it seem like you weren't really, like there was a conspiracy or something, and it wasn't really heartbeats that people were hearing. And I'm like, what do you think is going on? And she made it seem like men were deciding like a back room, like twiddling their mustaches and conspiring to whatever people were hearing on the sonograms. Like she just said the most wildest stuff, and a lot of people say the wildest stuff. There was huge propaganda going around from, gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think the Maya Network started the pictures, but was it maybe the Guardian posted an article about it, and it spread on Instagram and TikTok, and they just had pictures of like the fetal tissue, like after the baby was sucked up and they cleaned out the blood and stuff. And they're like, this is what a pregnancy actually looks like at 9 weeks. And even some pro-choice people were like, okay, I had a miscarriage, and yet you can see the baby at 9 weeks visible to your eye. It doesn't look like just a sack. But people kept spreading that around. There was a girl who's a big pro-abortion person who went on Michael Knowles's show, and they had a conversation. She pulled a picture out of her pocket to see, I'm going to show your audience. I'm like, no, this clown did not. Knowing full well, as a medical student, ought to know what the baby looks at like 9-8 weeks or whatever, and you pull out a picture of some tissue. So it's hard because you really can't show people in some kind of massive way. And they, even if like even if there's street people showing the signs of the babies, people like think that you're the bad guy for posting that stuff. Even if I posted sometimes stuff on like Twitter, people get angry. I was talking about the Kate Cox story one time live, and I'm like, I'm going to show you guys what she did. Like I went through the story, the actual details of the case, because it's really not how she's presented it, or rather the left wing has presented the case. And then I'm like, let me actually show you what happened to her baby at 20 weeks. And I showed what happened during the abortion. And one of my subscribers was like, I understand why you did this, but now I have to unsubscribe. I'm like, people need to know. We need to have these conversations. People need to know what they're advocating for. But yeah, so I would say we have a lack of knowledge, and that's why there's a lot of people perishing. But I'm grateful to that young man who gets on and does the lives, and people who talk about the subject, people who listen to the subject, be educated to the subject. And but it is difficult out there. It is difficult out there, and I just wish that young woman had more access to the truth before she did what she did. And now she's got to evangelize her position to justify and feel like she made the righteous choice for herself, and that her friends made the same righteous choice. So it's just a cycle of dysfunction. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support. I appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store, like this My Money, My Business shirt. We got this cool Frederick Douglass shirt here that you guys can check out. And check out some of my books that are available. If you search my name on Amazon, you'll find me. But there's links in the description that'll take you to a bunch of my stuff and my different social media. So anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.